Hello, it's Sonia here with The Pretty Stitch. Welcome to my channel. If this is your first time joining me, I'm so happy to have you here. So today's video, we're going to continue on my How to Crochet series. So this is lesson number 2, and we are going to learn how to make a slip knot and a chain. Those are the foundations of starting crocheting. So let's get started. So for today's lesson, I am using my eye hook, or 5.5 millimeter hook, one of the hook sizes that I recommended. And obviously we need some yarn. So here I have my number 4 worsted weight yarn in a light color so you can see your stitches. So some of you might know how to make a slip knot, and some of you might not know how. So I'm going to show you 2 different ways that you can make one. So the first way is you can do it on a flat surface, like I have this desk here. So what you would want to do is you have your yarn, it's like an upside down U here. Here's a shorter end, and then here's the working end, which means that's coming out of your ball or your skein of yarn. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to cross it over. So take the short end and cross it over. And I'm just making that loop a little bit smaller. So we have a little loop here. Oops. So we have a little loop there. So the end that I crossed over, I'm now going to tuck underneath that loop. So I'm just tucking that under, and I've made another little loop. I'm going to grab that. You want to grab both ends. Just give it a pull, and now we have a slip knot. So obviously if you're going to use it to crochet, you want it a lot smaller around your hook like that. So that's one method to do it. I'll do it one more time. So I have my upside down U, we're crossing it over, so now we have like a little circle, or we've made an X, and then we're going to take the shorter end, I'm going to tuck it under, have a little loop there, and I'm just going to, you want to hold on to both ends, so you're going to grab that little loop. Oops, I'm losing it. There we go. This is not how I usually do slip knots, but I like to show 2 different ways because the other way, might not make sense to you. And then you'll pop that on your hook, and then you're good to go. So the way that you know that you've made it correctly is it slips right out like that. So if it doesn't do that, then you know you haven't done it right. So the way I usually make my slip knot is I usually use my finger. So here's my shorter end. It's in front of my finger, my index finger, and I just wrap it around. I make an X. So you can see I wrap it around, I make an X around my finger. So this is the working yarn, the longer part. That's my tail, my short part. And I'll stick my thumb on top of the X, and I tuck that under. And you can give it a pull like that. Or what I usually do, because I use this to crochet, I use my hook to help me out. So I make my X, cross it under, I take my hook, I grab it and pull, and I've got my slip knot. So to make sure that I've done it correctly, pull it apart, boom, we've got the slip knot. So let's get that slip knot on the hook because we are going to start making our chain. So I'm going to make my X around my index finger. I'm using my thumb to hold it down. That longer part of yarn, I'm just going to tuck that under, have that loop, grabbing it with my hook, give it a pull, and then tighten it up. So we are all set to go to make our chain. So when you're starting your chain, you don't want your slip knot to be super tight on your hook, super snug. You don't want to have trouble moving it up and down. So you want it to move up and down easily like this. So you want it snug but not ridiculously snug. You also don't want it super loose. So let me loosen it up. So you don't want it like that. You don't want to be able to see a gap. So just, that happy medium So let's get that where we need it to be. So it's sliding back and forth nice and easily. So we're all set to go. So we're going to make our first chain. So you obviously don't want to use this part of the yarn, that's the tail. We want to use the working yarn, which is coming out of your ball or your skein of yarn. So here we go. Here is our working yarn. So what we're going to do to make our chain, I'm holding it out to the side like that, and then holding my hook. Now this is for right-handers only, so I apologize to you left-handers. I tried to do this left-handed and I'm just not gifted that way at all. So I do know that there are left-handed tutorials out there for my left-handed friends, and I have a daughter that's left-handed and I tried to teach her, and we were able to do it because she sat we sat facing each other, so we were mirroring each other, and if I can figure out how to flip this, I will, because if you're left-handed it's going to look like that. But I just cannot do it like that. I like I said, I am not ambidextrous. I wish I was, but I'm not. So this is right-handed version, but some left-handers can crochet right-handed. So, you know, my daughter, even though she's left-handed, she does a lot of things with her right hand. Like, it's pretty amazing how she can really utilize both of her hands. So anyway, let's get started. So we have the yarn. I'm holding it out from my hook and holding my hook in my other hand. And I like to kind of hold the tail down with my fingers just to keep it out of the way. So now we're going to wrap it around the hook. So you're going to take that working yarn, we're going to wrap it behind and in front, just like that. And now we are going to work a chain. So it's going to feel like you're all thumbs at first. Like I do it, I can do it really quickly. But if you're having trouble, you know, it's okay. You know, just it takes practice. So what we're going to do is this loop we wrapped is going to catch under that hook. And we're going to take this other loop, the bottom one, and pull it over like that. So as you can see, I grabbed it with my index finger and my thumb, and we have created one chain. So there it is. Doesn't look like a whole lot, but there is one chain. So let's repeat that. So you're going to yarn over. Now I don't usually grab it, I usually hold onto this and just pull it through. Like, because that just automatically catches under there, and just pull it over. Yarn over, let that guy catch, pull it over. So now we have made 3 chains, 1, 2, and 3. We're going to yarn over, pull it over. And that is a crochet term, yarn over. So if you hear me say yarn over, holding the yarn from the back to the front, that is a yarn over, and let that guy catch, pull that loop over, and we have created another chain. So if that's really tricky for you, what you can do until you get the hang of it, so you're going to do your yarn over, let that guy catch, and you can take your thumb and index finger, grab that loop, and pull it over your hook. So we'll do that again. Like, this is not the ideal way, but if you're just starting out, it's fine until you get the hang of it, and then you can yarn over and just work your chain, and you will get it. Don't beat yourself up if you're having trouble. And your chains might look a little wonky in the beginning. They might be all different sizes. The goal is you want them pretty uniform like this, so you can see how my chains look pretty even. You don't want to have it loose like this. So now you can see like that chain is loose, and let's see if we tighten it up. That one's tight. This one's loose. That is not ideal, but your first chain might look like that, and that's okay. Like, don't, we're learning the motions, it's all like muscle memory. It's always difficult when learning a new skill. So you can see she doesn't look too bad, but she's a little bit looser than, let's say, these guys here. So that is called tension. So if your tension is all over the place, you might have some looser chains, tighter chains. that is, you want to have an even tension. So you want your tension to look pretty even. You don't want to have some stitches super loose, some stitches super tight. But again, that comes with practice. So chances are you're not going to get perfect tension right out of the gate, and that's okay. Just keep practicing and you will get it. So here we go. Here is our chain. And so why don't we learn how to count our chains? Okay, so as you can see, I have a different color here, and I have a different color hook. This is still an I hook, or this is an H hook. I'm sorry, this is an H hook or 5mm. I just thought it might be nice to have. I feel like this shows up nicely against my white desk, and then to have a contrasting color hook. So here you can see I have made some chains here. And this is the front of the chain. As you can see, they look pretty nice and even, and that's what you want. That's the goal when working your chain. So why don't we learn how to count these chains? Because counting is very important when you're crocheting. You're going to be doing a lot of counting. If you have trouble remembering your counts, you can always write things down. I've done that, sometimes or even in my phone, or I have my computer and I'll just make a Word document and, have my notes on a project. So let's count chains. So when you're looking at a chain, so let me actually get a smaller hook here. So we're going to use a smaller hook as my pointer. So let's look at this chain closest to our loop here. So this is one chain right here. So right here is one chain, and it looks like a V on its side. So here is one leg of your V, one, and then here is the other leg, two. And then you have the center of the V right here. That is one chain. So if we're going down, so here is one, here is the next V. So one leg here, the other leg here. So that's the second one. Here is the center. So we have one, we have two. So let's keep going down the line here and see how many we have. So now we have our third V. So one leg, center right there. So I hope you can see that. That is our third V. So here we go, leg, here's our fourth V or chain, it's a chain. And here is 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and then here we go on the end. Sometimes the end one can get a little crunched up there, but you can see there is a leg there, and then there's one on the bottom, so that is 12. So you want to know how to read your work. I say that's so important with crocheting. So what I mean by reading your work, I'm a big reader anyway, I love to read, but you want to know what the stitches are supposed to look like. So that makes it easier for you when you're crocheting your project and something goes wrong, because it inevitably will. We're not perfect. You can recognize your mistake. Some people, they can't recognize their mistake. They know how to make the stitch, but they really aren't familiar with how the stitch is made up, the components of the stitch. It's like an anatomy of a stitch. That's why I'm going into detail with the V. It might seem tedious, but it's going to help you down the road to understand, how to read your work, how to pick out mistakes to make sure you're on the right track. It also helps you to count, because if you don't know how to count your chains, you're really going to have some problems. The chain is your foundation of many projects, most projects with crochet. So you have your chain and then you build off of your chain. So if you don't know how to count, you don't understand the components of your chain, you're really going to have a hard time building off of that chain. So I just find it really important to know how to read your work. So that's why I kind of went into detail about counting your chains and what the chain is made up of. So if you turn the chain over on the other side, there's the back of the chain, and sometimes you do work in the back, which we will go over that. You'll see kind of ridges on the back that I don't know if there's a technical term, but I've always just learned, I learned it was a back bump, and they do look like bumps. So here's one bump, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and then 12 is that last back bump. So let's turn it over the other side. So this is the front of the chain, the V's. This is the back of the chain, the bumps. So that is how you work a chain. And then our next lesson, we're going to get started with some stitching. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned something and you want to keep crocheting with me. And if you did, please like and subscribe, and thank you so much for watching.